From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Littleton, Massachusetts is a town of about 10,000 people. It's the kind of place with more cows than coffee shops, where neighbors wave from porches, and where a conversation about wastewater management with the head of the local utility can happen between the Frosted Flakes and Raisin Bran at the grocery store.
It does happen a lot in town. I have a direct contact with the people that we serve, and we're loved in the community.
That's Nick Lawler. He runs Littleton's municipal utility. He provides light, water, and power. It's not glamorous, but it matters, and that's what Nick loves about it.
I always loved the public power model. It's great to go to a place every day that you provided essential service to the residents you serve, and then to have their appreciation for that back. I don't think there's many jobs in the country that you get that direct satisfaction from.
One Friday afternoon in the fall of 2023, Nick was outside mowing the lawn when his phone started to buzz. The caller said Nick needed to ring the FBI. No real details, just call the FBI. So he did, and that's when Nick got the bad news. The voice on the other end said Littleton's utility had been hacked. And then, almost right away, the voice said, "Don't worry, I'm here to help." Nick just needed to give the voice some information.
We need your personal email address, or if you can give us your personal email address, that'd be great. We then want you to click on a link.
Now, Nick wasn't born yesterday, so when someone called claiming to be the FBI and told him to click on a link, he didn't panic, and he didn't click. Instead, he hung up and went back to his mowing. Because if it was a scam, he wasn't going to fall for it. There's another reason Nick didn't buy all this. Littleton's utility wasn't flying blind when it came to cybersecurity. Far from it.
We've always taken it seriously. We've presented at national conferences as what do small utilities do and how can you be prepared for these events. We had policies in place. We, had cyber insurance. Like we do employee training. We very much thought that we were leading the way.
So they weren't just prepared. They were an example. So when the call came, it just didn't sit right.
And what was going through your mind?
That, this is ridiculous. I'm getting a scam right now.
But still, you never really know.
But, you play it out.
So he did. He decided to call the local FBI field office himself. The real one, just to be sure.
I called back to a number that I looked up online. I asked for that gentleman. And he answered the phone. "Oh, okay, Nick, you're back." Yeah. And it's like, well, what is going on here?
What was going on was bigger than Nick ever imagined. It was the beginning of an unlikely story about a small-town utility, Chinese state hackers, and the choices Nick would have to make to stop them. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about all things cyber and intelligence. We tell true stories about the people making and breaking our digital world. And today, a quiet threat hiding out in our infrastructure. Water, power, lighting, gas, all of it. And how foreign adversaries are quietly positioning themselves to potentially take it down.
No, I know now, it's, everybody is a target.
Stay with us.
For decades, China's economic rise has been symbolized by the unstoppable force of low-cost manufacturing. But today, a new and far more disruptive wave of competition is unfolding. One that threatens not just Western manufacturing, but also the West's geopolitical dominance. I'm journalist James King, and in my new audiobook, Global Tech Wars, from Pushkin Industries and the Financial Times, I'm unpacking what China's rapid technological ascent across cutting-edge industries like artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and surveillance technology means for the future. Find Global Tech Wars at pushkin.fm/audiobooks, Audible, Spotify, and wherever audiobooks are sold.
From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. Even after calling the FBI directly, Nick Lawler still wasn't convinced this was real, and he told the guy as much.
Listen, I can't comprehend what you're saying right now. It seems very fishy. You know, if you're really who you say you are, why don't you come into our office Monday morning? I want you to tell me to my face.
He hung up, and he figured that was the end of it. But then, on the Monday morning just before Thanksgiving, Nick Lawler was in his office, sipping coffee, checking in with his team, his usual morning routine, until...
all of a sudden, I get a call from our front office saying that there's two gentlemen here, one from Homeland Security, one from the FBI.
Did they look like feds?
Yeah, they look like Men in Black. You had two guys in suit and ties, collared shirts.
We're the Men in Black. We have a situation and we need your help.
I'm thinking in my head, did these two guys just go to the store and buy suits? And is this the trap? Like, what is the trap here? You keep trying to figure out because you're just so skeptical.
It didn't help when one of them introduced himself as Daniel King. If you're a Cold War trivia buff or just mildly paranoid, the name might ring a bell. Daniel King was an American sailor accused of spying for the Russians.
So now your mind's even going more like, whoa, was this the spy Daniel King that was in here? But and I played along with them. I still wasn't sure why they were
Nick
there.
brought them back into the conference room. That's when the two G-men slid a pamphlet across the conference table to him.
They put a pamphlet in front of me, and it's got nation-state actor, Volt Typhoon.
Volt Typhoon, a Chinese state-sponsored hacking group known for quietly targeting critical infrastructure.
And had you ever heard of Volt Typhoon before they gave you this literature on it?
No.
They explained the threat. They'd been seeing quiet probes into infrastructure all across the country, and it looked like Littleton was among the targets. And then they said they could help.
But we don't need you to make a decision today. This isn't ransomware. This isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. Take your time, enjoy Thanksgiving, and then call us back. Yeah, that was kind of my response. I kind of laughed. Enjoy Thanksgiving. If this is real, how can I enjoy Thanksgiving?
Nick definitely seemed like he was frazzled, but I mean, who wouldn't be when they got a phone call from the FBI?
This is John Burns. He leads threat hunting at Dragos, a cybersecurity firm that specializes in threats like this. And months before, John's team had started working with Littleton, helping them beef up their defenses against cyber attacks.
And then I mentioned Volt Typhoon, and I heard the sigh of panic. So I'm like, okay, well, at least that's real.
Our adversary hunters were already tracking it as a threat group that was doing things out in the wild, but we hadn't seen it in any customer environments yet.
Until now. John told Nick that Volt Typhoon doesn't leave many fingerprints. There's no ransomware screen, no ransom notes.
There's no message or calling card. There's no banner that pops up that says, hey, this is Volt Typhoon in your environment.
Instead, they slip in like a ghost and then just wait. It's not a smash and grab with them. It's a long con. Dragos also had something most others didn't, a list of some 35,000 IP addresses that had been tied to Volt Typhoon in the past. So John and his team went hunting for those in Littleton's systems.
I went in and started looking, and I very quickly was able to see that there was some really weird traffic going from a couple of their servers to some malicious IPs that were geolocating to China.
So that's when I knew it was real.
Now that Nick had confirmed that the threat was real, the question became, how did it happen? And it turns out, for as ominous as the threat sounded, a nation-state hacker in your network, the attack itself happened in the most pedestrian of ways. The vulnerability came from a third-party IT vendor.
They got an alert saying, hey, we need a firmware upgrade because of a known vulnerability. And they never did that upgrade.
So it was basically a patch that wasn't done.
Correct. Yep. I would say within days of that vulnerability being known, Volt Typhoon had gained access. They probably ran some sort of algorithm that put us on a list of people they wanted to try to infiltrate.
Needless to say, Littleton canceled that vendor's contract. But as John and his team at Dragos looked further, they did uncover one piece of good news about the hack.
Now, they never did gain access to any customer information or our OT systems.
OT, or Operational Technology Systems. OT systems control the physical world, like turning water on and off or managing safety sensors. If a hacker can control that, they can shut the whole system down. But in this case, the hackers had only made it into Littleton's IT systems, the part of the network that controls more virtual things, like email. And that was by Littleton's design. They had drawn the line between IT and OT systems and put a strong firewall between them. And that line held, so the hackers never had control over the physical plant. Now that they confirmed that they had an intruder, they got to work rebuilding the perimeter, patching the holes.
We changed IP addresses, we changed structure, we got multi-factor authentication across the board now, new firewalls.
The whole operation took about a month, and then, just in case, they ran a stress test. Last summer, CISA, one of the government's cyber divisions, came back and did an exercise. CISA tried every which way to break past Littleton's security for 3 long weeks, as Nick held his breath.
They were unsuccessful to get in. So we believe that we closed any doors that Volt Typhoon might have opened. But it's one of those things, it's a strange feeling. Once they're in, I don't think you ever sleep the same at night thinking that, did they somehow leave something somewhere you didn't find?
And there was this other thing still keeping him up at night. One question he couldn't answer. Why them? Why Littleton? That's when we come back.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
ChatGPT, AI machines, satellite,
engine ignition,
Click Here,
and liftoff.
When Nick Lawler was sitting in that conference room, the Volt Typhoon pamphlet in front of him, the men in suits across the table, they kept saying this one thing.
They made it very clear on several occasions that we were the top priority of the federal government, which I kind of chuckled.
Littleton, Massachusetts, population 10,000, one substation, a top priority? Nick was dubious, until they explained why. Volt Typhoon doesn't behave like most hackers. They don't lock you out, they don't demand Bitcoin, they don't brag on social media about their hacks. They just slip in quietly and kind of hang out.
They come in, they blend in, and then they might grab some files that look interesting to them, then they get off. That's what makes it hard to catch them. They're not actively on your system, but they're actively making sure that their access is still there. So every couple months, I think they're coming back in. Okay, yep, good, that door's still open. Or we still have access to what we need to get access to, and that's it.
Volt Typhoon was doing this quiet hack to pre-position themselves on infrastructure networks across the country. They were lying in wait for the moment when something went south, a war, a diplomatic crisis, and then they'd already be inside, ready and waiting to attack. And it turns out it wasn't just Littleton. Volt Typhoon had cracked into systems in some 200 other U.S. utilities. In places where Volt Typhoon gained access to operational technology, it was more than just lurking inside a network. Theoretically, they could cut the power. They could stop the flow of water. They could even disable critical utilities near military installations. And this isn't hypothetical. It's already happened elsewhere. During the pandemic, Russian hackers locked up Colonial Pipeline's billing system, crippling fuel deliveries up and down the eastern seaboard for days. And then there was JBS, the world's largest meat processing company. In that case, a Russian ransomware group shut it down for days. And according to the suits, China's Volt Typhoon was putting the pieces in place to be able to do something like that. And there's this other thing that makes small towns targets. They often are home to big things, like military bases or nuclear facilities. They're also just a good place to sort of run a dress rehearsal for larger attacks. John Burns from Dragos again.
If I was an adversary and I was wanting to test my ability to make an attack on a bigger target, I think it's cheaper for an adversary to test their tools on a smaller target rather than put in place their own infrastructure to test their tools. I would probably go test it on a small utility or a small water company to test and make sure that my compromised tools work before I went and deployed them on a big hit and a big attack.
It used to be that if you attacked a town like Littleton, it wouldn't teach you much about how to attack Boston or Baltimore. Systems were all different, but not anymore.
It used to be very heterogeneous out in the world where it was like every control system was completely different. And if you compromised one, it was like, okay, no big deal. You really can't compromise another one just because you compromised this first one. It's kind of a one-off. But now we're kind of getting into this homogenous era where it's all about repeatability and scalability. So if you can use a compromise in one place, I'm potentially vulnerable to the same attack because of that. And people need to understand that.
Which is how Littleton becomes a gateway to New York, to D.C.
Everyone is either target or transportation.
Tell me what you mean by that.
You either have something they want, or you are the path to get to the thing that they want.
This is Sue Gordon. She used to be the number 2 at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence during the first Trump administration. We caught up with her to talk about Littleton at Vanderbilt's Future of War Summit in Nashville back in April.
What we do to protect the critical infrastructure has got to be done taking into account the fact that when you make it more orderly, you make it more attackable.
Because being orderly makes things predictable, and by extension, very hackable. Sue also worries when she sees Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency cut cybersecurity grants. The U.S. government's strategy to protect vital infrastructure, a big part of that is public-private partnerships, funding grants to help towns like Littleton beef up security against adversaries.
I know if you're Doge and you see some dollars for something, you can't, it's hard to identify what that's going to yield 10 years from now. So I think it's incredibly worrisome when that's the approach you take of a line item that you can't trace to some immediate benefit, that becomes something you take away, because it's that long time horizon work that has saved us over and over again of the course of our history. Now, maybe it's not 30 years anymore, but it's sure shooting not 1 year.
Because the federal government can see the pattern. They can spot how one compromised water system in one forgotten zip code can have ripple effects. So they invest in preventing that.
Yeah, there are some things the government does really well. It tackles big problems that are too big for others. It has longer time horizons.
Do you think that there are lots of Littletons out there that are totally vulnerable to these kinds of threats?
Infinite.
Wow.
So that's why Nick Lawler speaks up, even when others don't or won't.
I mean, I know there's other utilities in New England that were hit, and no one wants to talk about it. And if we're not willing to talk about it as victims, then how do we expect our peers to ever hear of it? And I think the first reaction from the public is, how do you let that happen? But, it's our job to explain it. And it's our job to tell the public what we did right and to tell the public what we didn't do right, so that way, hopefully it doesn't happen to you.
Last September, Nick took the stage at a cybersecurity summit for the American Public Power Association.
And when I asked how many had heard of Old Typhoon, only half the hands went up. So this is a full year after we had been compromised. These are professionals that are in this part of the industry, and only about half of them have heard about Old Typhoon.
Did that surprise you?
I mean, it's hard to say it's surprising when a year before I didn't even hear of it. It doesn't surprise me, but it's unfortunate.
And that's the part that sticks. That one of the most sophisticated cyber operations China has ever run could quietly reach into a tiny town with a single substation. But a year later, half the people responsible for keeping the lights on across America still hadn't even heard its name.
So is it a little mind-blowing when you think that a Chinese state hacker came after little tiny Littleton? What does that make you feel like?
Well, the whole thing's mind-blowing. And really, ever since this has happened, it's really heightened my awareness of the world that we live in today and the type of warfare that we're witnessing. And that's what this is. I mean, this is cyber warfare. I think James Comey had the quote, there's two types of companies in the world, one that have been infiltrated and compromised by the Chinese, and one that doesn't know it yet.
This is Click Here.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
Here are some of the top cyber and intelligence stories we're following. From a trial that could dismantle one of the most powerful companies in Silicon Valley to a global supply chain shift that's leaving American manufacturing behind, and a shakeup at the National Science Foundation that could chill American research for years to come. It's Tuesday, April 29th. First, a major moment for big tech.
The way America innovates is by promoting competition.
That's FTC Chair Andrew Ferguson commenting as we slip into the third week of a landmark antitrust trial against Meta, the company behind Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. At the heart of the case is whether Facebook illegally monopolized social media by buying up potential rivals before they could grow into real threats. Internal documents suggest that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg pursued what he called a buy or bury strategy, snapping up Instagram in 2012 and WhatsApp 2 years later. The FTC argues that these moves crushed innovation and hurt consumers. If the government wins the day, Instagram and WhatsApp could be forced to split off into separate companies, potentially gutting Meta's ad business and reshaping the digital economy. The case could drag on for months. Meanwhile, while Washington battles over who controls social media, American manufacturing is facing a different kind of threat.
Apple is looking to shift iPhone production out of China.
As tensions with China escalate, America's tech giants are making a different kind of move, overseas. Apple is now expected to shift the majority of its iPhone production for the U.S. market to India by the end of 2026. The shift comes after years of rising tariffs and uncertainty between Washington and Beijing. Today, nearly 80% of American iPhones are made in China, but that's changing fast. India's labor is more expensive, but it's seen as safer. And Apple isn't alone. Analysts predict other companies like Google and Microsoft will follow their lead. It's a massive realignment of the global supply chain, just not the one U.S. policymakers were hoping for. And finally, even the world of scientific research isn't immune from Washington's shifting priorities.
The Trump administration is waging a, quote, wholesale assault on U.S. science.
Last week, the National Science Foundation, America's largest independent funder of basic research, canceled more than $230 million in grants. The cuts targeted projects linked to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, and efforts to counter misinformation. But the definition of DEI appears to be unusually broad. Grants supporting bird conservation and even research on government censorship in authoritarian countries like Iran and China were abruptly axed. Critics say it's injecting politics into science, a move that could set American research back for years. Adding to the upheaval, NSF's director resigned Thursday after 5 years at the helm, leaving a leadership void at a crucial moment.
Today's episode was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Dina Temple-Raston, and the lead producer was me, Zach Hirsch. It was edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music by Ben Livingston, with some other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Martin Peralta and Jesse Neiswanger are our sound designers and engineers. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Tune in Friday for Mic Drop, which features our favorite interview of the week. We'll see you then.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.